Welcome to today's deep dive. Whether you are prepping for a big meeting or maybe you're just catching up on new ways of thinking or, you're just insanely curious about the world, we are absolutely thrilled to have you here.
We really are.
Yeah, because you, the lifelong learner, are exactly who we do this for. So we've got a really interesting one today.
Oh, we really do. We have a genuinely paradigm-shifting text to explore today. We are looking at this really provocative short essay. It was written by Schweffing in March 2021 and then translated by Kinyu and edited by Peter.
Right.
And, I mean, it carries a title that just immediately demands your attention. It's called To Cultivate One's Mind is to Polish a Brick into a Mirror.
Yeah, that title is it's such a hook. And really, the mission of our deep dive today is to completely deconstruct this piece of advice that, well, you have probably heard 1,000 times.
At least 1,000.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it is basically the core command of the entire spiritual and self-help world. This whole idea that we absolutely must, cultivate our mind.
Exactly. It's everywhere.
But today, we are going to explore this radical argument from the author that this entire concept is not just flawed, but literally conceptually impossible.
Yeah, and it is a massive departure from your standard self-improvement advice.
Yeah.
We're putting a very, very common belief under a microscope today just to see if it actually holds up to, logical scrutiny.
Because it sounds so profound, right? Like, oh, I'm cultivating my heart and mind. But what if, as the author argues, trying to do that just makes you a fool falling for a trap?
Right. And to set the stage for why this is so jarring, I mean, think about how we usually approach fixing things in our day-to-day lives.
Oh, totally. There is this very comforting expectation of a clear, tangible process. Like if your house has a leaky roof, you climb up there, you find the damaged shingles, and you patch the hole.
Exactly. Or, if your clothes tear, you just get a needle and thread and you mend the fabric.
Right. If your phone slips out of your hand and shatters on the pavement, you don't just hope it gets better. You take it to a repair shop and they physically swap out the broken glass for a new piece.
Yeah, because we love that kind of tangible repair.
Yeah.
Human beings are, we're just deeply satisfied by physical problems that have physical solutions.
We really are.
We like things to be visible, categorized, and most importantly, fixable on a workbench.
Yeah.
With the right set of tools.
But then, we step into the realm of our internal lives and we try to bring that exact same workbench mentality with us.
All the time.
Right. We are told by ancient philosophies and, modern wellness influencers and just general cultural osmosis, really, that if we feel anxious or lost or scattered, we just need to do the work.
Yes. Do the work of cultivating our hearts and minds.
Exactly. And it sounds incredibly profound. It sounds like this lofty goal that only requires enough discipline to achieve.
But that tension is where this essay really finds its footing. Because there's this deeply relatable shift that happens when someone immerses themselves in what the author calls the cultivating world.
Oh, yeah, like the honeymoon phase of self-help.
Right. At first, hearing about cultivating the mind carries this heavy aura of ancient wisdom. And because it sounds so high level and mysterious, our instinct is to assume, well, we are just novices. We bow our heads and assume the flaw is in our lack of effort, right? Not in the philosophy itself. But Xuefeng says the more he practiced it, the more he felt completely fooled.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the metaphor in the title perfectly captures the frustration of that effort. To cultivate one's mind is to polish a brick into a mirror.
It's such a vivid image.
It really is. Let's visualize that for a second. A brick is inherently porous. It is rough clay, it's baked in a kiln, and it's physical design to absorb impact and absorb light.
Right. It's not shiny.
Exactly. A mirror, on the other hand, requires this perfectly smooth, sildered surface to reflect light back at the viewer.
So different.
So if you sit down with a brick and a polishing cloth, you could spend 3 decades rubbing that clay. You could apply all the elbow grease in the world, use the finest polishing compounds, and just exhaust yourself utterly.
And at the end of it.
At the end of 30 years, you won't have a mirror. You'll just have a slightly smaller, slightly smoother brick.
What's fascinating here is the absolute absurdity of applying physical repair logic to something completely intangible.
Yeah.
The essay drives this home by contrasting the internal world with the external world we just discussed. A broken road can be repaved. A torn shirt can be sewn.
Right, the tangible stuff.
But the cognitive error we make is treating our internal state like a broken smartphone. We have this quiet assumption that if our mind is feeling chaotic, we could just, open up the settings, tighten a few emotional screws.
Run a quick software update on our consciousness.
Yes. Run an update, and everything will just run smoothly again. But we are applying the laws of thermodynamics and mechanics to a space where those laws literally do not exist.
That makes me think about the nature of what we are actually trying to grab hold of here, is trying to fix the mind, essentially like trying to paint the wind.
Oh, I like that. Paint the wind.
Right, because think about a massive windstorm. You can absolutely see its effects. You can watch the trees bending sideways. You can feel the pressure of the air against your face. You see the debris blowing across the street.
Absolutely. The effects are real.
But if you decide you don't like the wind, you can't just go outside with a bucket of red paint and a brush and try to change its color.
No, you can't.
You can't capture it in your hands to alter its fundamental properties.
That analogy perfectly bridges the gap to the next logical hurdle in the essay. Because if you cannot physically grab the wind to paint it, and you cannot physically grab the mind to fix it, you are left with a severe geographical problem.
A geographical problem.
Yeah, I mean, before you can even attempt to repair a broken television, you first have to walk into the living room and physically locate the television.
Oh, right. You have to find it first.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if the mind is something we're supposed to be cultivating and fixing on a workbench, we first have to figure out where it actually lives and what its properties are.
And the author's interrogation of where the mind resides is just relentless. It entirely upends our everyday language.
It really does.
Because we use the word mind constantly as a noun. We say, my mind is playing tricks on me, or I have a lot on my mind, treating it like a very specific storage container.
A literal box in our heads.
Right. But the moment you try to pin down its coordinates, the entire concept begins to unravel. The essay poses these rapid-fire questions that are just brilliant.
They're so funny, too.
Yeah. He asks, is the mind located inside the chest cavity? Or is it somehow outside the body? Does it float in cosmic time and space? Or does it exist in the mundane, everyday things we interact with, like our morning bread and milk?
And bringing bread and milk into the equation forces a necessary grounding of this very lofty spiritual concept. It asks us to look at our breakfast table and wonder if our consciousness is somehow entangled with the physical objects we are consuming. But then he goes even deeper into the physical properties.
The shapes and colors.
Right. If the mind is a noun, a thing we can cultivate, what does it look like? Is it square or is it round? Is it perceived in black and white or is it in full vibrant color? Is it constructed of physical meat, like our brain tissue, or is it made of mud?
And when you ask if the mind is square or made of mud, I mean, the listener immediately realizes how ridiculous the premise is.
Exactly.
Of course the mind isn't square. But if it isn't square, and it isn't round, and it isn't in the chest, and it isn't in the bread, well, then we are chasing a ghost.
We really are. And to anchor this realization, there is a powerful quote from Buddha Shakyamuni presented in the text.
Oh, yeah. Neither the past, the present, nor the future of the mind can be found.
Yes. And the conclusion drawn from this is massive, because if this thing does not exist in any locatable physical sense, there's absolutely nothing there to be cultivated. It acts as a complete philosophical full stop. You cannot cultivate a void. You cannot repair an object that refuses to materialize on your workbench.
Okay, I have to push back here, though. Let's put ourselves in the shoes of someone listening to us right now.
Sure.
If the mind truly does not exist, as that Buddha quote suggests, then who is doing the listening? Right. Like, who is parsing these words and experiencing the curiosity or the confusion? If I fundamentally do not have a mind, how am I even capable of formulating this counterargument to challenge you?
This raises an important question, and honestly, it is the primary hurdle that trips people up when they encounter this philosophy.
Yeah, it's a big hurdle.
Because our subjective experience is so loud and so present, right? We instantly assume that the machinery producing that experience must exist as a static object.
Exactly. I think, therefore, I have a mind box.
Right. But the argument here is not denying your subjective experience. The author is not claiming that your thoughts, your confusion, or your curiosity are fake.
Okay, that's a relief.
Yeah, what is being dismantled is the concept of the mind as a standalone, permanent noun. The text denies that there is an isolated entity called a mind sitting in a vacuum, just, waiting to be polished.
Okay, so if we stop treating it as a noun, if it isn't an isolated object in a vacuum, then what is producing the experience of thinking and feeling?
This brings us to the core thesis of the essay, and it shifts the entire paradigm. The text offers a completely alternative definition of consciousness.
Which is?
He writes, phenomenon gives birth to minds, but minds can transcend over phenomenon.
phenomenon gives birth to minds.
Yes. The crucial element here is that the mind is an emergent property. It is born entirely from the interactions with our surroundings. Without the phenomena of the universe happening around us, there would be no mind to speak of.
We need to really look at how that operates in practice because the essay uses an incredibly clever analogy about television to illustrate this dependency.
Oh, the TV analogy is perfect.
It is, because 100 years ago, you would never hear someone say his mind is entirely focused on watching TV. And the reason is simple. Television had not been invented. Before the phenomenon of the glowing screen existed in the world, the specific conscious state of the watching TV mind was completely impossible.
The implications of that are staggering when you scale them up. We tend to view the mind as an empty bucket, and throughout our day, we drop different experiences into it.
Yeah, like we drop in a TV show, we drop in a conversation, we drop in a meal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But this philosophy suggests there is no bucket at all. The interaction with the television actually creates the TV mind in that specific moment.
Wow.
The phenomena itself generates the corresponding state of consciousness.
And the child analogy in the text makes this even more undeniable.
Oh, tell them about that one.
Right, so if you walk up to a 7-year-old boy and ask him, hey, is your wife always on your mind? The child wouldn't even know how to process the question.
Because he doesn't have a wife.
Exactly. Because the child does not have a wife, the phenomenon is entirely absent from his reality. Therefore, it is literally impossible for him to possess a wife mind. The state of consciousness cannot exist without the external trigger.
Which completely proves the dependency of our internal state on external reality.
Mm.
Our thoughts are not spontaneously generating in a void. They are direct responses to the stimuli we encounter.
Here's where it gets really interesting for the person listening to this right now, maybe on their way to the office or while walking the dog.
Oh yeah, let's bring it back to daily life.
Apply this logic to your biggest daily frustrations. This means your work stress mind or your morning traffic mind does not exist as a permanent defect inside your brain.
Right, it's not a broken part of you.
No, it is not an uncultivated part of your soul. Your traffic mind is more like a shadow.
A shadow, I like that.
Yeah, because a shadow only appears when a physical object stands in the way of a light source. You walk past a tall oak tree, and the tree casts a long shadow on the grass. You get into your car and sit in gridlock, and the gridlock casts a traffic mind shadow across your consciousness.
I love the shadow analogy because it clarifies the absurdity of the cultivating approach. If you don't like the shadow the tree's casting on your lawn, you wouldn't go outside with a broom and try to sweep the shadow away.
No, you'd look ridiculous.
You wouldn't try to polish the shadow or yell at it to change its shape. The shadow is just a symptom of the tree blocking the sun.
Yet, sweeping the shadow is exactly what the self-help industry often tells us to do.
Exactly.
We are told to meditate the stress away, to journal until the frustration disappears, to fix the internal feeling while completely ignoring the external traffic jam.
And consider how much unnecessary guilt and burden that places on the individual.
Oh, so much guilt.
The cultivating world often implies that if you are unhappy or stressed, it is a personal failing. It means you haven't polished your brick enough. You haven't reached enlightenment. It creates this profound sense of inadequacy.
But this alternative view completely shatters that guilt.
It does. You are not failing at cultivating your mind. Your mind is simply doing exactly what it was designed to do. It is reflecting the phenomena around you.
Yeah.
You don't have a broken mind. You are just standing in the middle of a very stressful phenomenon.
That reframing is incredibly liberating. It takes the target off our own backs. But it also leads us to the final and perhaps most difficult realization of the essay.
Which is the trap.
Right, because if the mind is just a shadow born from phenomena, then continuing to try and aggressively cultivate it is a literal trap.
And the linguistic contradictions we use every day highlight exactly why it's a trap. The essay points out how we describe people's mentalities in wildly opposing ways depending on the situation.
Oh, right, the idioms.
Yeah. On one hand, we might criticize someone by saying, his mind is smaller than the eye of a needle, implying they are petty or aggressively narrow-minded. On the other hand, we might praise someone by saying, his mind is bigger than the sky, meaning they are vastly ambitious and expansive.
And when you put those two idioms side by side, the concept of cultivation breaks down entirely.
Complete.
How can you practically cultivate something that is smaller than the eye of a needle? You can't even perceive something that microscopic, let alone shape it.
Yeah.
And conversely, how do you cultivate something bigger than the sky? You cannot wrap your arms around the atmosphere to mold it. It is conceptually and physically impossible on both ends of the spectrum.
So if direct internal cultivation is conceptually bankrupt, we need an alternative that actually works in reality.
Which Sui Thing
He
provides.
does. The text points toward a concept from Zen theory, which it actually validates as highly reasonable and understandable. That concept is changing your surroundings with the mind.
Let's focus intensely on the distinction there. It is not about changing the mind itself.
No.
It is about utilizing your agency to alter the phenomena to change the physical surroundings. Because if phenomenon gives birth to the mind, changing the environment will naturally and effortlessly give birth to an entirely different state of consciousness.
It is the difference between trying to convince yourself you aren't cold while standing in a blizzard versus simply walking indoors and sitting by a fire.
Oh, that's perfect.
One is exhausting internal cultivation,
Right.
right? The other is practical external action that instantly changes your internal state.
And sticking to the exhausting method of mind cultivation earns a brilliant, really visceral description in this essay.
My favorite part.
Yeah, advocating for people to cultivate their minds is compared to a tiger that wants to eat the sky.
That image is so powerful and honestly slightly tragic when you really picture it.
It is. Imagine a massive, powerful Bengal tiger. It has coiled muscles, razor-sharp teeth, and boundless energy. It looks up at the vast blue expanse of the sky and decides it wants to take a huge bite out of it.
Okay.
It leaps up and snaps its jaws, but there is absolutely nowhere to start.
Right.
The sky has no edge. It has no physical substance to sink teeth into. The tiger can leap and snap at thin air for hours, but eventually it will just collapse from total exhaustion, having accomplished nothing.
And that exhausted tiger represents every person who has spent decades sitting in silence, fighting their own thoughts, trying to forcefully cultivate a state of peace while remaining surrounded by a chaotic, destructive environment.
Wow.
They are snapping their jaws at thin air.
Which brings us to the ultimate, rather brutal punchline of the text.
It doesn't hold back.
No, it doesn't. After walking through this entire logical progression, realizing the mind cannot be found, realizing it is merely a reflection of phenomena, and understanding that trying to cultivate it is like a tiger biting the sky, the author labels the entire industry of cultivating the mind.
He calls it a trap to fool a fool.
A trap to fool a fool. It
Yeah.
is a harsh assessment, without a doubt.
It is. But based on the rigorous logical dismantling we've just gone through, it is the only mathematically sound conclusion left on the table.
So what does this all mean? I want to push back one final time because I can hear the audience wondering about the practical takeaway here.
Sure, let's hear it.
If we accept that cultivating the mind is a trap for fools, does that mean we just surrender? Do we abandon all concepts of self-improvement and just let our uncultivated shadow-like minds run wild and react to every horrible thing in the world?
Right.
Or is there a hidden cheat code buried in that Zen concept of changing our surroundings?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this is absolutely not a mandate to give up. It is the exact opposite.
Okay, how so?
It is a massive, urgent wake-up call to stop wasting your precious, limited energy trying to bite the sky. When the text calls it a trap to fool a fool, the goal is liberation.
Liberation from the trap.
Yes, it's trying to free you from an endless, frustrating cycle of internal polishing that will never, ever yield a mirror. True growth and peace do not come from forcing your internal state to change in a vacuum. By emphasizing the Zen theory of changing your surroundings, you are being handed the practical keys to your own well-being. You do not fix the mirror, you change the object that the mirror is reflecting.
We have covered incredible ground today. We started by realizing the absurdity of taking a mechanics approach to our spiritual lives, how sitting in a room rubbing a rough clay brick will never result in a reflective surface.
Never.
And then we move through a relentless interrogation of where the mind even is, proving it isn't in our chest or in our breakfast.
And from that lack of physical location, we uncover the reality that the mind is entirely an emergent property. The television creates the TV mind. The surrounding environment dictates the internal weather.
Right. And finally, we saw the tragedy of the tiger exhausting itself trying to eat the sky, proving that trying to directly cultivate a reflection is an impossible trap designed to keep us running in circles.
It is a philosophy that shifts the burden from internal agonizing to external action.
It really is. As we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to mull over as you go about the rest of your day.
Always the best part.
We have firmly established the argument that phenomenon gives birth to the mind. Your consciousness is the shadow cast by the events and environments you place yourself in.
a direct cause and effect.
So, if that is true, what happens if you radically change the phenomena you choose to look at tomorrow?
Oh, that's a great question.
Think about the things that consistently cause you stress or anxiety. If you stop looking at them, if you change your commute, if you alter your digital habits, if you remove yourself from a toxic room, does your stressed mind simply get better, or does that specific stressed mind literally cease to exist?
Wow.
If the object blocking the sun moves, does the shadow just instantly vanish? It is a powerful concept to hold on to the next time you catch yourself trying to polish a brick. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the world around you. Keep looking for those aha moments. We will catch you next time.